Hi, this is Lori D with another I Am Your Friend rant. And I've done some research on 6 9 or Takashi 6 9 because I like to get inside the heads of the artists before I do their work, unless it's a karaoke kamikaze where I'm just, making up melodies. But for this, I like to get inside their heads, especially if I don't know them or I've never really heard of them. And I don't think I'm really a big fan of his. And that's not to say I don't respect him. Now, I do respect him, and this is why. It's because he is what he says he is. And within like the hip hop community and like with rappers, they're putting out an image that's not them, but he's totally for real. Um, and he's so for real, it's almost like surreal about how for real he is. And I have mass amounts of respect for that he actually is who he says he is. But at the same time, it ignites a little bit of a fear in me because he is who he is. Um, uh, because that he is that image. It fits him like a shoe, like a well tailored suit. That is who he is. Like I said, I might combine this with another rant I was thinking of about nobody's ever from the hood. Um, or nobody's ever from, a low income community. So, but maybe that'd be better off on its own. But I went from like growing up in Connell Village to going to school on the south side of Chicago to being transported via flight to the south side of San Antonio, where I was a teacher on the south side. I was a Catholic teacher at the time. And so and then after that, I moved to another low income area of San Antonio. Then I moved back to Chicago, where I lived in Edgewater. And then I moved back. I didn't really, I wasn't really, I really missed Texas. So then I moved right back to Texas, where I moved to Austin. But I lived on the southeast side of Austin. And I think the only time where I actually lived where I belonged was when I lived in Hyde Park of Austin. It's sort of like sort of an artistic neighborhood. So that's really the only place where I ever lived where the shoe fit me, where I actually belonged, where I lived. Um, I also taught in South Korea, so I obviously didn't belong there either. So I never really lived where I belonged. But when you live in the hood, nobody belongs there. And so if somebody is trying to say that they think they belong in the hood, they're full of shit. Because nobody who lives there thinks they belong there, especially if they're under the age of 20. And that's how you know somebody's really from the hood or not, is because they don't belong there. Now, maybe they do. I refer to shameless because, it isn't that accurate, but as far as my intents and purposes go, it's one of more accurate than other shows. Like Lip, he did not belong in Back of the Arts. And he was told this over and over and over again. Like, oh, you don't belong in the Back of the Arts. Debbie obviously didn't belong in the Back of the Arts. But apparently Fiona does belong there. So, and they're all the same family. And even their psychotic little brother doesn't even belong in the Back of the Arts. He belongs in military training. And the other brother probably belongs in Boys Town. So nobody belongs there, even the ones who do belong there. The friend, the psychotic friend, he did not think he belonged there. Nobody thinks they belong there. So that's like the real difference is that mentally, either you don't think you belong there, or you're told over and over and over and over again by everybody you know that you don't belong there. And it gets really intense um, when they even say that you don't even belong to your own family. And I mean, I don't mind people, like when I was growing up, I didn't really mind people thinking that I didn't belong there as saying that I deserved an education or I deserved a good paying job. But when they say you actually don't belong with your family, and your family's actually not abusing you in any way, shape, or form, that's going a little too far. But they did that as well, especially if you're happen to live in one of these communities, but you just happen to be zoned into a very good school. So I was growing up in this community, but at the same time, I was zoned in one of the best schools in Illinois, one of the highest scores stats. So I like within the community itself, I got a lot of love and support. But at the school, they could tell. Like I said, I had a slight slang. They knew that I was from this community. They could tell. And it was constantly being sent messages that I did not belong there. I didn't even belong to my own family. I even got that messages from very good friends of mine. And it's just constant and nonstop. Uh, and I think another one of my friends was very bothered by it, and she eventually became a poet too. And she loved her mother more than anything in the world. I mean, she constantly posts about her mother on Facebook, and to constantly be getting messages that you don't even belong to your own family, that's that's something I would like really watch out for. And if I see that happening with my son, I want to step in and intervene. And no, you definitely belong to your family. Um, but you like, if let's say you are a lip, you know, and you are living in a lower income community, and everybody believes that you are destined for greatness, and that you are going to get out, and you are going to succeed with your life. You know, I was like a mix between, I guess, a lip and a Debbie, because the officials at the school thought I was a Debbie, but the people I, in my community thought I was a lip. So you can be a lip and a Debbie at the same exact time. Like they thought that I was going to be like a knocked up teenager. They assumed this about me because of my slang, that I would be a knocked up teenager, or because I was having like emotional problems dealing with all this stuff. So they automatically assumed, they like tried to write my future for me, that I would be a Debbie. I would be a knocked up teenager. But at the same time, my friends all thought I was a lip, somebody who would get out and who would succeed and go to college and earn all these honors, and show everybody up. And I don't know if I could have gone to college if I didn't have that type of love and support. How could I possibly go have the strength to apply to college and apply for the FAFSA and apply for all these grants if I didn't have that love and support from my community, if I didn't have the encouragement from my father and my mother and my aunt? Even she was the most convinced that I didn't belong there, and she was also convinced I didn't belong with my family. But she's in education, and I don't know why teachers are like that, where they actually want to tell children that you don't belong to your family, and that's not true. I mean, why do they all automatically always assume that you're being abused when you're not? Um, that's really a problem. I mean, that's a lot of overstepping, but it just emotionally warps your mind to be living in a place and to be constantly told that you don't belong there, but that's actually where you live. And then you get out and you move and you live your life and you live in different places, and you don't even get credit for it, because no one believes that you ever lived in this place in the first place. It's just totally warped. I mean, when I did move to Texas, I totally belonged there, but I didn't really belong there because I wasn't a native Texan. And it did actually take me a while to drop the chip on my shoulder, because growing up and like, you know, having people constantly tell you these things, you start to develop a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. But people with light complexions in Texas are not allowed to have chips on their shoulder. You can have the same exact job, live in the same exact neighborhood, but if you are white, you're you're not allowed to have a chip on your shoulder. You're constantly reminded that you are privileged, even though you're sitting in the same room, working in the same building, living in the same house. Even you are constantly reminded that you have privilege that other people don't have. So I'm not allowed. I was not allowed to have this chip on my shoulder like I did when I was in Chicago, and it took a while for me to drop it. And then when I finally did, I was fully accepted, um, and I loved it because I could, you know, integrate myself, and I could be a poet, and I could enjoy, my life and be exactly who I am, and not expected to downplay my intelligence and always have high expectations of me. And I really enjoyed that. That was one of the things I loved about Texas. And but that's not true in the Chicago suburbs. Um, it's all about where you live. It's all about the money. You don't know this about Chicago, but it's just not the South Side's a hood. It's all hoods. Everything is a hood. But there are better neighborhoods and there are worse neighborhoods. All of Chicago and all the surrounding areas is a series of neighborhoods, and basically where the metro train goes, that's the whole Chicago metropolitan area. And when you move out of Chicago, people just say Chicago, and it's not necessarily because they're trying to misrepresent themselves as being inner city. It's because once you move out of Chicago, the only people who act like that are people from Chicago. So, like, if you move to Texas or move to New York or California, um, uh, you just say Chicago because only you act that way, and it doesn't matter what neighborhood you're from. You've kind of got that edge. You've kind of got that mindset, and only people from Chicago, doesn't matter what neighborhood they're from, have that type of mindset. So to them, it's all Chicago. And I saw a little meme. There's even a joke for people in Illinois. Like, if you're outside of the Chicago metropolitan area, this whole thing is Chicago. They just see it as all being Chicago. So when you're within Chicago, it's very insulting to people living in the inner city if you actually live in the suburbs to claim that you live in the inner city, even if you once lived in the inner city, or even if you are constantly, your life is actually in the inner city, not just your work life, but your social life as well. And you just drive in, or maybe you're living in the suburbs more because family reasons. That's where your husband wants to live, so that's where you live. That's my case. So I would much rather live in the city, but married people make compromises. So I'm living in the suburbs. And the funny thing about this is that I never even I don't even really know any of my neighbors. I've lived here for 3.5 years, and I've never really talked to any of them. I don't know who they are. And that's really strange because when I lived in Continental Village, I knew everybody. And not only my court, but the court across from me, the court next to me. I knew everybody in all the apartment buildings. I knew everybody in that neighborhood. I met them. I've probably even gone into their house. But here, I don't know a single person. So how can I be from a place where I don't even know anybody? And if I wasn't so religious, I'd probably go crazy. My only social interaction outside of my house, other than going to the city for um, improv shows or open mics, is my religion. So I wouldn't know anybody at all. Um, and that's strange for me to not know a single person. I don't know anybody other than my husband's friends. Um, that's the only people he knows too. So, and he's never really talked to anybody in the neighborhood either. So I don't know anybody here, and that's really weird for me. And when you're living in a lower income community, you're not from there. or you don't belong there. You're from there, but you don't belong there. Nobody thinks you belong there. But since I live like in Lisle and it's next to Naperville, everybody thinks I belong here, even though I don't. I don't know a single person. I really don't know anybody. And that depresses me. And people, it's like so beyond their comprehension that I would be depressed about living here, that I must have a mental problem. Uh, uh, that's what they think, because everybody should be happy living here, and that gets to me too. Like, I'm doing my best to try to accommodate and put my smile on, and nobody gets it that this is just not for me, and I feel like I belong somewhere where nobody thought I belonged, or I belonged there much better because I actually knew the people there. I associated with them. I talked to them. I wouldn't say necessarily friends, but I knew everybody who lived there, and now I don't. Um, and that's just strange. And in Texas, you do kind of know your neighbors too. So to be living in a community where nobody really talks to each other is strange for me. That's kind of weird for me. So uh, yeah, and like I said, it shines through. You may think I belong here, but nobody else who lives here thinks I belong here. They can tell. They can tell that I was not, um, even though I have two college degrees and whatnot, they can tell that I don't have a lot of money. And that in here, it's all about the money. And if you don't have a lot of money, people don't respect you. So that's just the way it is. It's like that in all of Chicago, except for maybe Wicker Park, or in some ways even Lincoln Park. But you have to have a lot of money to live in Lincoln Park. But it's maybe Wicker Park's the only exception, or maybe Logan Square. Uh, Everywhere else, it's all about the money, especially if you live in a more affluent neighborhood. It's really all about the money there. So if you don't have any money, it doesn't matter how. I guess Hyde Park too. Hyde Park, if you're highly degreed, you're special. So, like, if I were to move to any Chicago neighborhood, it would be, I think, Hyde Park or Oak Park. Um, I would fit in best there, or Wicker Park. Hyde Park, Wicker Park, or Oak Park. And if I like had a choice about where I would live, it would probably be those three communities, because I am somewhere in the middle. I'm not saying that I'm a total. I wouldn't belong in a complete total hood. I definitely wouldn't belong there, but I do belong in a place where um, they value something more than money. Um, or they value intelligence or artistic talent. Maybe even the South Loop. I probably would like the South Loop too. Um, yeah, South Loop, or like a Hyde Park, Wicker Park, or Oak Park. But um, the neighborhoods I'm the most scared of, obviously the Givens, Englewood, and Austin. Um, maybe I'm judging because I've the crime stats are just so high that I would never even think of going there willingly. So, um, yeah. But other than that, I'm most scared of Edgewater. I did live in Edgewater. Edgewater is shady. Edgewater, Rogers Park, and Uptown. Uptown freaks me out. Um, and ironically, so many of my friends live there and love living there. I don't understand it. I don't understand why they love Uptown so much. But those areas, like on the north side, scare me. Um, uh, um, I could live in Humboldt Park, but I wouldn't feel comfortable living in Humboldt Park. And um, uh, like maybe the lower rent areas like Logan Square. But I feel comfortable there, but I wouldn't really feel like I belong there. So there are places in Chicago where I feel like I could move to and be happy living there. So, um, but I'm definitely I'm adjusting to living here, but it is so strange not knowing anybody. So yeah, and I started this rant talking about how I'm not a fan of 6ix9ine, and I ended up doing a rant about the how nobody from the hood is from the hood, but it is related in a way. Um, so I'll go back to like how I was living in San Antonio and I was a teacher. So I said in a previous "I Am Your Friend" dialogue that I liked Little Pump, and that's because he reminds me of the kind of student that I would save. You know, I would look for students that needed saving, and I would identify him as being, you know, the one I would save. Now, 6ix9ine represents the kind of student that I'm saving him from. Like if you're trying to save somebody, you're trying to save him from something, and that would be 6ix9ine, you know. But um, and if I was a younger woman in a club and I saw him there, I put up my hood and I would put up my hood and pretend to be reading something or looking at my phone. Like I would politely avoid him. I wouldn't want to get up in his business. Um, I wouldn't want to draw any attention to me. Not that he would find me attractive in any way. I don't think that. Even when I was younger, I don't think that he would, you know, want anything to do with me that way. But he's actually in a gang and he does sell drugs. And guys and gangs uh, don't want you up in their business. So you want to make sure and tone it down a little bit and mind your own business when you're around them. You don't want to get up in their business. And I never met a guy who's a blood in the crypt at the same time. I didn't know that was possible, but he is. He's actually affiliated with both gangs, and but I do respect him because he's so straight up and honest about it, and he's totally for real about it. That he is the one supplying the drugs, and he's totally for real about it. So, with that aspect, I totally respect him. That I just am blown away by his realness about how genuine he is. Um, and that goes back to my other rant about how, and within the freestyle community, you can trust them because they are who they say they are. While that's not true in the comedy community. Um, and that's so strange that people would be more fearing for my safety in the freestyle community, but I can go be an improviser with all blessings. You know, improvisers, I mean, I'm not going to bash all of them, but you know, there's a reason why there's so much news about the Chicago improv scene, and that's not the LA's comedy scene, but you know, there's a reason why there's so many accusations. So, um, and uh, I I don't think that 6ix9ine's totally Takashi is totally owning himself. I mean, he's owning himself with his image. That is who he is. But I don't think he owns himself as far as to what he's doing. He believes he's the good guy, and everybody appreciates how he's given back to his community and how he owns himself and how he's literally given out $100 bills. He went to the Dominican Republic for the Gotti video. He was actually literally passing out money. He does this in New York, where he's from, the Bronx. He goes around actually passing out money. I mean, he's definitely the Robin Hood of the of his community. I mean, um, but he's not like robbing the rich. I mean, everybody's got money for drugs, but they don't got money for food. So but he's sharing his wealth with the community around him. So I like that he has a good heart and he's giving back to his community. But as far as his allegations go, um, I do feel that he was unfairly targeted because he is a freestyle artist and a rapper. And I do admit that. I do think he was unfairly targeted. But he doesn't seem to think it's wrong for him to share a post of him with a 13-year-old in a bra on his Instagram. He doesn't feel it's wrong because she was totally there, and she was uh, she was acting much older than her age, and she was totally into it. So that's okay for him to use her to get internet fame. Okay, and it's okay for him to be at these parties and to host these parties. Not that party, but he was just happens to be there. That he didn't know anybody there. He just happened to be there, and she was there, and he didn't even know her. Doesn't even really know the people there. It was just time and place, um, and he got mixed up in this, and it was he was just unfairly targeted. Um, but being like Brett Kavanaugh is never okay. So, all because Brett Kavanaugh gets away with it doesn't mean it's okay. And that's like the message I want to send to him. Um, that he's unfairly targeted. Yes, true. And I'm glad he was caught and that, he has some retribution for this. And that's another reason why you can kind of trust guys in the freestyle community because, if they've had crossed the line, they were most surely caught and convicted, maybe even jailed. So they learned their lesson at the young age that that no matter how rich they are, the law is always going to apply to them, and it is unfair playing field, and that's the way it is. But it doesn't make it okay. You know what I mean? Um, uh, uh, it's never okay to be Brett Kavanaugh, no matter what you think that what purpose you think is why you're doing this. Even if you see yourself as being Robin Hood, even if you have massive amounts of respect for her, a 13-year-old does not belong at a drug party, you know? Yeah. So, like, as a teacher, somebody who's teaching in a community like this, I not only would be trying to save the little pumps from guys like Takashi 69, but I would also be trying to save the girls too, you know. So I mean, I would see him as being the villain that I need to save all these kids from, you know. But he's not truly the villain in the real light of things. And if I did do a song and change up the lyrics a little bit, um, I would not personally fear him. I would fear getting up in his business. Like I wouldn't want to get up in his business. I wouldn't want to bring light to me. I wouldn't want him paying attention to me. But his presence would not fear me. I mean, I wouldn't like incite fear in me because I know if I leave him alone, he'll leave me alone. If I respect him, he'll respect me. So I don't really fear that. And anyway, if I wouldn't want to get up in his business for another way. I think it would really creep him out because I'm the same age as his mom. So at his heart, I can feel that he's very, very traditional man. He's got traditional values, and he excuses his behavior because he's so young. But he has expectations of older people, and I feel him when he talks about all these older people crapping on him and making him out to be some kind of pedophile or something. Because I deal with them too, but I'm in the other side. I see them all as being younger people, and he sees them all as being older people. And I go, well, you don't know about these younger millennials or millennials. I've done rants on them. They're not good. They don't have that moral compass inside of them. So he's getting it from the other side, and he doesn't understand why all these adults are shitting on him. And why are you shitting on a kid? I'm just a kid. I was just a kid when these allegations happened, um, but Brett Kavanaugh was just a kid too. So you know, uh, it shouldn't be okay with anybody, and I'm sorry that he was unfairly targeted. And I know that if he came from a rich white family, that he might have gotten away with it, and everybody would be totally cool with it. But, does that make it right? That's what I'm saying, that it doesn't, like, he doesn't feel, he's not owning himself when it comes to this. He doesn't feel that he, that, and that I don't think that it's enough to make me, um, want to be against him or anything like that. I do appreciate his work, and I appreciate how for real he is, but at the same time, it incites fear in me because I know how for real he is, and I don't want to be up in this business. I don't want to like criticize him or, um, uh, um, I don't want to. I don't want his spotlight on me, um, uh, because it's not the type of attention I want, you know, because that's just, you know, um, the hardest part about living in a hood is minding your own business, believe it or not. And for the most part, I can mind my own business, except like when it comes to like domestic abuse. Not saying I'm not trying to relate this to him or anything, but it's that's the only time I couldn't mind my own business is when I knew that my neighbor was being like abused. I had to reach out to her, but um, then I was up in his business. He was concerned about me. Like, is she going to call the police? Is she going to turn me in? So that now I have him stalking me as well. So that's a very hard position to be in. Um, I'm putting myself in danger by trying to help her, and it's like eventually I had to move, and I love that apartment. I never live in a place where the rent was only $340 a month. It was great, and the bus line was right there. Oh yeah, that's when I moved to Chicago. That's when I finally moved to Chicago. Is when that happened. It was just no longer safe for me to live there. Um, I would put myself in danger by not minding my own business. But for the most part, I've never really been aware of any like domestic abuse, except for here. I hear things. I hear women screaming in parking lots, and I hear like fights in the middle of the night. And I keep questioning, should I go over there? Or the best thing to do is just like anonymously call the police. And that's what people do here is when they hear stuff, they just call the police. And but as far as like domestic abuse goes, I hear a lot more of that here, believe it or not. Um, yeah, I've even like heard gunshots. Maybe it was fireworks, but I don't know. And this is supposed to be a really safe place, and that's kind of weird. And never heard that in Connell Village, And um, so that's my rant on that. Should I still do the song? I don't know. I think I might offend him to have somebody the same age as his mother do his song, and it really shouldn't offend him. Um, like this other rapper, I did a like a rant on him. I forgot his name, but he is the same age as me, and he loves that his mom is constantly giving him encouragement and support. So you shouldn't like be offended if somebody your mom's age is giving you support, or has respect for you as an artist. I don't think I'm a fan of his, but I do respect that he's totally for real, and that he is actually who this image is because I've I've seen like most of the rappers are not that image. Most of them are have to do a lot of drugs in order to get up to that. There's very few people where the shoe actually fits, if you know what I'm saying. Um, Even like the guy I dated in 2005, he was a Jewish boy. So um, his mother loved me. So yeah. But he literally had to get high in order to do his set. You know, that wasn't really who he was. So, and he was really from the city though, and I'm very proud of him. He's going back to college. He was going back to college at age 30, and took me back. It was, you know, and he was doing all these things. So, like, and he really liked having me around because I liked him when he wasn't high. So I liked him more when he was himself. So um, that's the kind of dream. Like he's got like, oh, female savior coming in to save me. That he was looking for some type of female savior. So like a lot of the guys are like they fell and they need a woman to set them straight, and but also who really supports his music and his art. So that was me. I fit that glove. So that's how that happened. Um, that's you know they're all dreaming about some girl to come in and take them out and set them straight. So and that's why you always got to act like a lady because that's what they want. They want they want to see women as being the strong ones and the ones with who can speak reason and but at the same time we don't judge them. And that's very hard to find, to be honest. Well, I'm gonna go. I've spoken enough, and we'll see how it goes. All right, have a great day. This is Lori D.